Hi, this is Mike Young with Noble Warriors. You're about to hear a message entitled Tools You Should Own If You're in Men's Ministry, presented by Todd Schlomann. Todd is our church relations specialist with Noble Warriors in Midlothian, Virginia. This workshop was part of the Iron Sharpens Iron Men's Conference, hosted by Noble Warriors at Mechanicsville Christian Center in Richmond, Virginia, on Saturday, March 23, 2013. I pray the message will challenge and encourage you as you walk with Christ and lead your family.
So, this is my name, Todd Schlomann. I work with Noble Warriors. That's my primary job. I'm going to give you a quick review of who I am, because you're probably wondering what the strange guy is. Moved out here about 2.5 years ago. I was a pastor out in Oregon, associate pastor. Never wanted to be the head of the church, the point of the church. I like associate pastor work. Develop discipleship, outreach, community involvement is my passions. Celebrate Recovery. They talked about that video. Movie today, I love Celebrate Recovery. Moved out here though, my son started his church with his buddy. When they were juniors in college, they got together. They actually hated each other for the first couple months because my son finally found a guy that he could debate against and not wipe up. And they both had that. And so they didn't get along real good. But then all of a sudden they realized, hey, this is sort of cool. So they, since juniors, have been dreaming about starting a church together. 3 years ago, they started, and they said, what do we do with all these people that are over 40? I mean, can you, in age, are they worth anything? Can you use them for anything, Dad? Because he never thought anybody besides 20s and 30s would come to his church, because they have, not really heavy, I call it hot Caleb. I mean, Caleb, but just a little bit more edgier than Caleb music. And they always had the impression nobody would come. And I said, well, look, circumstances had it. I said, why don't I come, I'll raise my own support, I'll come out and be a church planting missionary, and I'll help you for 3 years. All the stuff they never taught you in seminary. So we're at our 2.5-year mark right now. Church is doing good. We're over 200 now every week. Sort of exciting. I have transitioned and working now with Noble Warriors full time. Now, some of you, how many of you know about Noble Warriors? Raise a hand. Oh, okay. I'll make this real fast. Okay. Well, just to remind you, because it's a book I like too. We believe that to get society right, you got to get the church right. To get the church right, you got to get families right. To get families right, you got to get marriage right. And to get marriage right, you got to get men right. That's from the book No Man Left Behind. Great resource, great book. But that's the foundation of Noble Warriors. But you know about us, so we'll keep moving. And I'll use that time other time. Again, just a quick review. We come in to help the church be successful. We realize that the church is God's plan. There's no plan B or C or D to reach the world. Our job is not to go around and do the discipleship here. Our job is to make the church successful so they can reach men, who can reach families, who can reach communities. We do it through all ways. This conference is one way. We do a great thing called lunchtime. And if you'd like this, you have to come up and sign up for it. We have a card here. We're a ministry team, 2 or 3, 4 people. We've had up to 6 come in for lunch. We'll buy you lunch. We'll sit down for 2 or 3 hours and just brainstorm where you're at, where do you want to go, and help you get there. We'll set out a plan. Well, okay, what have been the problems? And one thing we're always going to say is, what's your pastor's heart? What does he want? What's his vision for the church? Because we're never going to go around the pastor.
Amen.
He's, again, God's plan. Mm-hmm. Now, are all pastors 100% on board? No. We talk about that too. How do we get them on board? How do we talk about that? That's all part of this lunchtime deal that we do. We love doing that. It's just a great time. We've had a group come from Roanoke. And why they loved it, because we said, okay, on the way in, driving in, talk about all the issues. On the way out, decide your plan of attack, because you've got all the answers now. Now, that's a starting point. It's a long-term relationship for us. This conference isn't what we're all about in Noble Warriors. We're about shepherding year-round. So we just don't want to forget that we're here to help you. We had guys call up, hey, we're doing a game meal, a night out for the guys with a game meat thing. They had a cool name for it, I can't think of it. Anyway, we need a speaker. Who would you recommend? Oh, Mike remembers everybody's name. Sorry, I'm not that way at all. I love name tags. I live by name tags. He goes, oh, you should get so-and-so. Oh, he would work perfect for you. We love giving that type of resource. We're talking about small groups. That's my thing. Mike's not this small, he's okay at small groups. I live small groups. People call up, hey, we're having problems. Hey, let's talk about it. Just over the telephone. Sometimes you come in, sometimes we talk. So again, we just remind us that we're always going to ask the pastor's vision, the impact, how he plans to impact the community. We want to meld in with the pastors in this journey. How do men fit into the pastor's vision? That's a great question to ask. Most programs for pastors are something else to do. They don't see it, even men's ministry. And if you're passionate about men, and you're here, so I'm assuming that, pastors tend to see it. All these are great programs. He doesn't have a list of here's bad programs and good programs. They're all really good, and they all want to beat a piece of them, a bit of them. So you got to come in men's ministry. Now you're saying, yeah, but I know we're the best. We need to be the number one. I agree with you. Okay, but you got to be wise about this and show him that you're valuable and important. First thing is, how do you fit in? Talk to him, communicate with him, join him, support him. Find out ways you can make him successful just the way it is. Nickel prayer. How many of you know what a nickel prayer is? Okay, you'll be learning more about that this afternoon. A great simple way. Now, here's the truth. Most of the time when I hear about nickel prayers, most of them don't last. And it's sort of sad.
3 years.
3 years, do it.
3 years.
That's unusual.
I am unusual. That's not for me. That's not for me. I'm just saying,
a lot.
it has been a blessing for me to do that for my pastor.
And it is, just for those who are not, you give your pastor a nickel, and he knows that, or you put it on his podium, and the idea is maybe he has 50 nickels up there, and he knows that people have been praying for him 5 times that week. You don't have to say any word, and that's the idea. That he's busy. He just sees that, and there's this like, wow, I'm not playing football. But this is the feeling I have as a pastor. Sometimes you feel like you're playing football all by yourself. There's nobody to pass it to. When you see all these nickels, it was like, no, there's a team of us out here. Sometimes I forget that. So, again, you start doing those type of things for your pastor, he's going to start saying, what's this ministry all about? Any thoughts, questions? We'll keep moving on because you guys know a lot about that. Okay, toolbox. I love my toolbox. Now, you got a toolbox. A lot of guys have toolbox. As soon as I say the word toolbox, you've got a mental mindset of what's in your toolbox, or what's a toolbox. This is my toolbox. Anybody know what that is?
Pipe cutter, bolt cutter,
No. Okay.
pipe bender.
No? Okay, here's one. I made it myself. They're supposed to be wires. I need them for another project. You know, it's like, you don't know what this is? Come on, this is my toolbox. I love this stuff. This is all good stuff. Oh. Yeah. You gotta have one of these if you're doing this. No? Okay. Okay, here goes good. That's where that one's from. Clicos. Where's my Clico? Everybody wants Clicos because you pull them apart and then they stick together. You can put 2 pieces of metal together or something. Just holds them up. Those are cool tools. Or you can drill a hole and then it expands inside that hole. This one's the number 30. Yep. If you're in aircraft maintenance, these are everyday tools. You cannot do a job. Here's a spark plug. Now, those are big honking spark plugs. Now, when I was doing it, they were $25, $30 a piece. You know, you have 18 in the cylinder in one of the radial engines. That's a lot of money. You don't want to replace them, but see, tools and toolboxes are all based on what you know about your project. Any contractors here? Okay, most of my contractor friends, they have a bucket for the electrical tools. They got another bucket for plumbing. They got another bucket, every specialized area. They've got a, and it's all specialized. Now sometimes there's crossover tools, but most of the time they're just unique tools that they need to do that particular job. Our problem with men's ministry is we don't know our men as much as we think it is. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit to make sure that you understand the right tools. Because you got to have the right tools. You know, that's what we're talking about today. All these new tools that are really cool, but will they really fit your men? I don't have that answer. You've got to really think about who your guys are. My church, the average age is probably 26, now 30, I'm a little bit older. If your church is average age of 55, different tools. Now, what's the purpose of your tools? Yeah, I get guys coming in quite often say, hey, we're trying to figure out how to reach 30-year-olds, 26-year-olds. We understand that the future is in these guys. Depending the tools, let's talk about tools. You gotta study out men. Now, so there's the first law of toolbox is you gotta know your men. It's really, and that sounds so simple, and this is actually a huge issue for most churches. They don't spend resources and time figuring that part out. And a little part here, second law is know your men, third law is know your men. It's that critical, okay? Now, why do I say that? Here's some typical facts. These are several different surveys of what the church's condition is right now. 60% of women in the typical church, 40% men. What's wrong there? That's not our population. For every new church that opens, 4 closes. You know, I was in the Northwest, living out that way, and I was at that time, part of the association. We had the annual meeting, and they're all bragging. We had 26 new churches started. Oh, yeah, we're all applauding. That sounds wonderful. And then somebody said, how many churches closed this past year? And you hear the silence. It's like, how dare you say? I can't believe you actually asked that question. You know, it's actually hilarious because 25 churches closed in that group. We weren't patting ourselves on the back too much after that. But that wasn't bad. Again, this is saying for every new church that opens, 4 closes. 19.4 decline in church attendance in the past decade alone. Only one county in America has a greater church population than it did 10 years ago. That was in the South, I think, Texas. Now here's areas where we're not a religious country anymore. Okay, 15,000 people per month convert to Islam. Now, a very extreme culture, for men, for women. Why is that? It's not that men aren't interested in religion. That's not the issue. We've got, and I go back to one of the foundational issues is this issue. You don't know your tools. You don't know your men, so you're getting the wrong tools. And you know what? As an aircraft mechanic for years, there are certain tools I just loved, but as the aircraft changed, I had to change. I had to get rid of the different tools. That's why I have some of these tools, like the one with the wires no longer attached to it. Didn't need that tool anymore. I moved into a different position, whatever. Sometimes we got to change our tools, and that's not easy. Only 6% of churches are growing, and I've heard that fluctuate back and forth. Had a guy from the Southern Baptist tell me their definition of a growing church is 1 person baptized a year.
That's pretty broad.
Yeah, I just heard that. And I don't have proof of that, but anyway. I just want to make up this point really fast. Matthew 28, we know this. Go therefore and make disciples. Go teaching them. 2 Timothy, teaching them, training them. You know, we talk about that process, but understand, unless their lives are transforming, unless they're learning something, that's teaching. Otherwise, we're just talking facts. Yeah, I what's the old saying? Definition of something. Yeah, a leader is somebody that leads, but if he turns around, nobody's behind him. He's just taking a hike. That's sort of what this issue of teaching is. We're taking a hike, and we think everybody's behind us, but we look at the facts. Something's not jiving, and we can avoid it. We can ignore these facts, but we got to sit and say, okay. Now, I'm saying that change is hard. One of the things that my wife and I seem to be pretty good at, God just bless us, is our DNA, is developing small groups. Every year our small groups have to split. We just split. We're up to 18. In 11 months we hit 18 again, and we split. I hate doing that because my groups, they're in their 20s and 30s. We're sort of the parent role. Why I hate it isn't that reason. Okay, I'm making you think that because that makes me feel better. Because it's an ego killer. Because I stack my groups so the other group's going to be very successful, and I say, okay, these people are going to go over there. Me and 2 couples are going to stay over here. We had 5 in our group. Oh, what's the other group? That's wonderful for that group. Killed my ego. They didn't want to stay with Dad. They wanted to fly the coop. Whatever the issue is, I made them so successful. Change is hard. It's happened every time I've done this, okay? I should get better about it. I should feel better about it. But I got to tell you that last Wednesday, this just happened Wednesday, I just thought, man, don't they love me? Don't they care about me? You know, I grew this group to 18 and they all left. Change is always hard, but it was the right thing to do. And I'm, you know, this whole journey is going to be a hard change. Now, this is a fun. You got this sheet. Boy, it just sort of scrambled on my thing. I didn't notice that. But there's two lists. This is that piece of paper you have. Which list is the right list or left list is for men? Which best describes? Oh no, excuse me. Which best describes Christ? The right or left?
The left.
Does everybody think?
Right.
Oh, that's a trick question.
Yeah. Yes. Keith is in the 20%. Okay, this is from the book. I'm not recommending this book. It's just Venus and Mars.
Oh,
Old book. Remember that?
Yeah.
The right one is for women. The left one is for men. Now I've done this in my small group. Again, 20s and 30s. They all went with right is Christ. Why? Can you imagine the disciples, the fishermen? The right person coming in, the right person here, and they see that and they say, hey, that's the type of guy I want to follow. Because, you know, I'm tired of being a roughneck fisherman from the wrong side of the track and everything else. Now, there's something that was very aggressive about Christ that they said was powerful, efficient, skillful. There was something that brought them to him. Now, somebody said, Barrett, it's probably both. Yeah, I think you're probably right. Knowing when to be one and when to be the other. That's part of the 33 series, by the way. Another thing. But traditionally, as a church, yeah.
I was looking at the one for the churches.
I'll have to look at that one.
Yeah.
But just what's happening with our church. Now, there's a great book that talks about this. Why men hate going to church. Anybody read that? Okay, what did you think about it?
Eye-opening.
Okay. Was there, what did you?
Brought out some very subtle things that just passed my radar before I read the book.
You're comfortable in church, so you don't even see some of these things. Now, some people actually get really upset with this book. Let's see. I've got a copy of it. And it's downstairs, by the way. What I love about this book, it's on DVD. We're going to actually watch a little clip of it. I am severely dyslexic. Reading is hard for me. Okay, I will do it, but I really do have a stack of books on my end table. The DVD has two parts. We're going to look at the first part, and it says all the issues. Now, you're going to say some of these issues, even today, you're going to go, come on. He's got thick fingers. So you're going to say, what's the big issue? Okay, I'll give you that. But the second part of it, and we're not going to watch that, is, okay, how you can change. How you can make your church more manly. Because again, we looked at the stats, 60-40. Your church is being affected by that 60% women, whether you realize it or not. I had somebody read the book, and then they walked into their church, and they said, it was lavender. I never noticed my lavender church. Is that a manly color? My church is dark green with black glossy trim. Now you might go, what? It actually looks better than you think, actually. We have an interior decorator we said we want something that a 30-year-old would value and like, and it's got to be manly. That's what we did with wood. Great book. Let's watch the clip here for a little bit. Now, I want to say, some people don't like the book, or they got problems with it, and I go on to explain why, because this goes back to when you're dealing with change, it's hard. I had a classroom of 15 people. I was one of the newer pastor at the church, and this was the guy left the church because of what I said. I basically said, join us, get on the bus with us, but don't stay here if you can't. We want you to be with us. You've been in this church for a long, long time, but we're changing. We're not just King James, and I'm not trying to offend. This is what we were doing. We're no longer King James. We're not doing just hymns. We're going contemporary. We want you to be part of this. But if you can't backbite us over here. You gotta be on the bus with us. Now, I didn't say you had to love it. We had this long conversation, and he left. Okay, so I got his Sunday school class. They're all 65 and older, 15 of them, and then I found out they're all interrelated, all related cousins. And I'm like, oh man. Well, we talk about the change, and what I heard from them is opening for my mind. I hope it's good for you. It was change meant that we were doing it wrong before. Not different. And I said, no, we're just changing, different. No, you don't understand that. You're telling us what we were doing was wrong, and you're coming in and telling us this is right. Now, I never used the terminology. I never, I was really, I was trying to be, but that's what they felt. It's like, anybody get laid? I don't even ask the question because I feel bad already. Laid off because of the economy. It's not personal, it's just the economy. You got fired, didn't you? That's how you feel. That's the reality of it. Well, that's what we're telling pastors when we're coming into a pastor and saying, change your church because you're not manly enough. He goes, what do you mean I'm not manly enough? I've been doing this for a lot longer than you have, and you say I'm a sissy? Yeah. Now, he don't have to use those words, but he's going to feel really, so understand that, be gentle, and because I've had several people say, I just didn't like this book. And as we talked about it, it was because we were challenging what they were doing and saying you're wrong. Truthfully, we are. Okay? Let's not, there's 60-40, and you feminize some of this, and we got, I can't believe it. When we redid our bathroom once, and we had flowers in there. And I was like, do we have to have flowers in the men's bathroom? I mean, and so they did change them out. But,
and it also gets back to knowing your men. What they tolerate, what they don't,
And men won't say anything. They just don't feel what. Yeah, you come to our church. I had somebody come in recently. There was 12 guys, greeters, and 2 gals. It's possible. So we're going to try a little clip. Now try to make these clips. Oh no, please work.
Sunday school skill number 1 is reading.
They're about 5 or 6 minutes, so I want you to see it for real, not just this little highlighted part that I liked.
Well, let's take a look at it. There they are. You've all sat on those hard metal chairs, haven't you? Under those fluorescent lights with your Bible open. All right, well, here they are. There's Tom and Tina. They're reading from their Bible.
Oh, no, what did I just do?
Hit fast forward.
It's a PC! Okay. Lord, now this should not have been. Okay, there's a PC guy. Somehow I knocked the volume off of this thing. I had like that button by mistake. Star, this is the volume.
Yep, got 2 tech guys going on.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
We're all in trouble now.
And I have no problem being,
Two Mac users coming up here. That is crazy. It's PC guys.
I've never. I have to call my wife. What did I do? You will not do that.
Oh,
Yeah, we got
noise.
noise.
Go.
Looks like it's just not
Easy
playing.
started.
I can boot out and just come back into it maybe.
Sunday
Great,
school skill
whatever.
number 1 is reading.
Oh,
If you're
good.
going to be good in Sunday school class
Get
or
rid of the
adult
end.
class, you've got to be a good reader, right? Because a lot of reading takes place. Well, let's take a look at it. There they are. You've all sat on those hard metal chairs, haven't you? Under those fluorescent lights with your Bible open. All right, well, here they are. There's Tom and Tina. They're reading from their Bibles. Let's take a look at the fact. The fact is, men are not as good at reading as women are. Men are diagnosed with reading disorders at 4 times the rate of women. Male literacy in this country is going down every year. So, at the end of 1 round, the score is Tina 1, Tom nothing.
It's a PC.
Sunday school skill number 2 is this: speaking and expressing
Wait,
ideas.
want to close your eyes and just
Right, here
listen.
we are. They're talking about a Bible passage. And Tina's just waxing eloquent. Tom's sitting there looking at the book of, looks like Ecclesiastes. Let's take a look at the facts. The average woman speaks 20 to 25,000 words in a day, whereas the average man speaks 7 to 10,000 words in a day.
7 to 10.
Women are better at talking than men are. All right, here we go. Score is 2-0 at the end of that round. Now, Sunday school skill number 3. You have to know your Bible, right? The people that know their Bibles do better in church. Now, let's look at, oh, look at that. You've been there before. That's why you're laughing. Here's the fact. Women are 29% more likely to read their Bibles regularly than men. Why? Because women are better readers. Okay, so at the end of round 3, the score is Tina 3, Tom nothing. Let's look at skill number 4. Finger dexterity. Now what's that got to do with going to Sunday school? Let's take a look. You got to look up a lot of passages in a lot of books, right? Now look at these fingers here. They're like sausages. Look at those things. How's he supposed to flip through those skinny little pages with those things? They're like baseball bats. But Tina's got skinny little fingers. She's good at it. Here's the fact. Women outscore men by large margins on tests of finger dexterity. That's why they're able to sew and beadwork and all the things they're so good at. And men don't do those things. So at the end of 4 rounds, the score is Tina 4, Tom 0. Well, now we're through Sunday school, and let's see how we do between services. Between services skill number 1 is this, socializing. All right, let's see how we do socializing.
Okay, we're gonna get the feeling about this.
You guys have been there, right? You've hidden behind your...
Now, what's funny is, it really sort of true. All those are just actual facts. Now, do you come in and say, well, I don't feel very manly at this church, so I'm leaving? Of course not. But you don't feel comfortable. You don't feel, there's something missing. You don't know what it is, and that's the problem. Okay? Now, this is, we're going to move on. One of the struggles to know what's in your toolbox, you got to know your men. We all assume, and this is a big issue, everybody's at the same spiritual level. This was actually more one of my big struggles. And this book, and I love this, Real Life Discipleship, Jim Putman, excellent book on discipleship. He breaks it down, easy reading. This book is actually about 1/3 of 2/3 of that. The back part is diagrams and charts and information. But he talks about that everybody's at a different age. Now, you know that, but so now he uses kids terminology, infants, children, young adults, parents. Here, you share the gospel, they're born again. Let's see, just their language and behavior is ignorance. In these charts, he actually goes into what type of questions will an infant ask? What type of questions will a child ask? So you can define the leadership, what you have to teach them by where they are. Well, see, one of the problems I used to do, I used to teach classes based on me, my comfort zone. Now, I might break it down a step, but I definitely did not come down to a toddler and infant. I went to Bible school or whatever, so it was not a fair thing. And I couldn't figure out why I was having problems teaching and discipling. One of the terminology for child is they ask a lot of I issues. I want this, I do this, I. Well, yeah, that's a kid. That's terrible twos. That's where it starts. Makes sense. But is your expectation for teaching that? Are you teaching a class that they'll enjoy? Now, this is why this is important. Large groups are very low. A huge group to bring, like, we had a shotgun shoot. We had this one guy had this great property. It had a ridge on it, and we'd set up 9 throwers for a trap shoot. And then we had a pistol range, and everybody would come. Ed, I didn't even know, who are you? Okay? They would come because it wasn't very much on the training, obviously. It was all about social. You'll get everybody at it. Well, typical Bible studies, all Christians, medium Bible study. So, depending what your group is, you got to know what's your expectation. This is where it comes in. I hear people say, hey, I want to have a discipleship group. I got this great material. We're going to go through the Bible, and man, we get 12 guys. It went great. The next time I got 2 guys. What happened? Aren't they dedicated? Well, no, there's just not that many people down this far down the cone. What you got to do is you start here. Well, you teach these people. Okay, you got to come up here and help these people go down level by level by level by level by level, and pushing them down into that. So when you do an activity, where's that activity? Now, today, yeah, I'm not sure where you put it. Interested, seeking, it's probably up here somewhere. Just about everybody wants to come. Maybe not everybody. It's a church thing still. But okay, it's a reasonable expectation. You're going to get a lot of people to an ISI conference. But if you do a paintball war game, you might get everybody out there. What's your purpose for it? You should never do anything without a purpose and reason. And it all comes back to discipleship. It's never just to have fun. It's have fun to build relationships. So it becomes a circular thing. By the time people get down here, they should be understanding. They should be going to the paintball, not just to have fun, but to build relationships. So when you invite them to the next level, they'll come because they know you. So you got to know their ages. You got to know the right, again, what your expectation is of your event. To know who's going to come and how to teach them. How to get the right tools in your job. Because you'll bring the wrong tools to the wrong job.
Amen.
Let's see. Now here's a series we just love, 33. By far is one that I'd say is top of our list, no question asked. We're going to watch a little clip of it. Now I've got, you just left, so I'll hand these out. We'll hand these out to you. You hand these out. Why you want this, there's a code on it, free shipping code. It doesn't matter where you buy it, it's all the same price. You go to Lifeway, you buy it there, go online, it's all the same price. The only issue is you can do this from your house and it won't cost you anything. Okay, so there's this shipping code that's good forever. Now, I'm going to be honest, why do I push this? I get a list with everybody that buys it. And I want to call you up and say, hey, how's it going? Can we help you at all? How's your small group doing? Is it working? Okay. We want to just come alongside and encourage you. We're not going to sit there and say, hey, you want to buy more? No, we don't sell it. We do have some if you have an emergency. Like somebody said, hey, I got 10 more guys than I expected. Yeah, we got 10 more books at our office. But that's not why we do it, okay? It's just to assist you. So, we're going to watch just a little clip. Now, what I want to show you is, right off the bat, they talk about community. How do I say it? There's 3 guys in it. It's never one guy by himself. Okay. I was being impatient. Right there, the music tells you something. John Bryson was at our Fredericksburg conference. He was one of the guest speakers.
Yeah, there was just something about the last session. The definition of manhood. When I began to think about that, I just thought to myself, if I had that earlier in my life, just where would I be?
That's right.
To think about that, to reject passivity, to accept responsibility, to lead courageously, and then to invest eternally. I mean, that reshapes everything we're about.
Yeah, for me too. When I first heard that several years ago, it was like somebody kicked me in the rear and said, get up, get in the game, and do something. You know, don't just stand there like Adam in the garden.
Yeah, it puts that bullseye specifically on man's primal issue, and that's passivity.
Yeah.
And so, boy, to call that out and then to call us up into something else is exciting, which is exactly what we do in this session and the next couple of sessions, where we paint a picture of kind of the multi-dimensionality of masculinity.
Right. That manhood is not just one-dimensional. You can't act at home like you act at work. I mean, there are different sides, different faces, and we have to learn to embrace all of those and use them at the right time.
Yeah, there are 4 faces, right? Yeah. So we don't have to look at your face anymore. There are 4 faces of manhood. We're going to cover a couple of those.
There are. This session we deal with the king and the warrior. Next session, the lover and the friend. So today we're going to look in this session really at the righteous energy of the king, a lot about integrity and how to build that and what that looks like. and then the action-oriented, courageous energy of the warrior. So I'm excited to paint that vision.
I think, JB, you're up to date, so we can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Great.
December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. We've always needed God, but today we need Him especially. We're facing a new kind of enemy. We're involved in a new kind of warfare, and we need the help of the Spirit of God.
Neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor height, nor depth can separate us from God's love.
In these next two sessions, we're going to give you a perspective of masculinity that complements and expands our manhood definition. Our masculinity is designed by God to be multidimensional. Narrow or incomplete views of manhood will limit you. It'll hold you back from all that God created you to be, to do, and to experience. Unfortunately, our society has often depicted masculinity as one-dimensional. Men are viewed as only tough and unemotional, or as the overbearing CEO, or as the romantic ladies' man. These are often caricatures of masculinity, and they often dominate our culture's portrayal of men. The well-rounded man, or the man who can wield his masculinity timely and appropriately, is so rare these days that we've actually mystified holistic manhood. We've assumed that it's unreachable. We use a term like Renaissance man, which implies that the multifaceted man is a thing of the past. For example, we don't seem to believe that the man who can successfully lead a company can do it with integrity and honesty, while at the same time being passionately connected to his wife and kids and experiencing genuine friendship with other men. Many of us believe that such well-rounded...
Okay, I'm going to slide through that a little bit. Now, just quick about the series, 2 DVD copies, there's 6 sessions. There's 6 sessions and there's 6 sets. Now they're producing it every 6 months. So right now, 2 of them are completed. The third one's due out next month, and then 6 months from there, the fourth one will come out. And that's how they're completing 6 at a time. I'm doing the second one right now, and when you do one thing and it turns out really good, it's like, will the second one be as good? It's actually better than the first set. The second series, this one deals with definition of manhood, 4 phases of manhood, and the stages of life for men. The third one, second one deals with the mother wound, the father wound, the lonely wound. And then the third set that's coming out in April, because now you got all these wounds, like, what do I do with them? It's like, thanks, guys. And the old set, that's what they did. The old men's fraternity, they ripped open the Band-Aid and they said, goodbye, see you next year. They have a whole set that deals with the healing process. That's the third set. Now, the key to the success of any group is small groups. Okay, I'm sorry, that's just my opinion. Anyway, and I'm teaching it, so I get to say that. Now, what their new book is, it's a little bit more money than the old. The old was 10, this is 15. But there are some people, I've heard this, I think it's true, some guys like to read. Any readers out there? See, there is a couple, I knew that. Okay? Well, after each, they actually have stories in here. Now, real stories, not science fiction, by the way. Okay, John talks about his story. There's a military guy, general, talks about his story. Fairly short, couple pages. But now there are some people, and again, I'm not going to make you supporting resources, and they give you 7 books. If you really want more information, I hear there are guys that will actually look these up and read them. It's a story. They recognize that we're all a little different. Okay, some of us are visual. Now, I'm severely dyslexic, so writing in those little answers would kill me, because I'd be so focused I wouldn't hear a thing the guy said. All the answers are in the back. So when I come to it, they're already filled out, and I could just listen because I'm auditory. I've got to listen and focus. They've picked up on guys are visual. They're always changing it. Who's going to speak? There's never the same guy in a row. It always changes. The multimedia is always changing. Some of them are hysterically funny. Some of them are really serious. And this one was that more serious, contemplative. But it's sort of like the emotional one. So they've done a really good job keeping your mind, because they recognize the guys need their heads and their eyes constantly moving. So I love this thing. Now, just I'm going to give you a tidbit. 6 to 8 guys max. You can do it 4 or 5, but usually 6 and 8 in a small group. You go around a circle. There's usually 3 or 4 questions. I'm trying to get to them. Okay, here's the one about create and cultivate. The first session. How are you creating, cultivating in different roles in your life? So they've talked about it. Now, what are you doing? Are you creating and are you cultivating? Because you can't be a man if you're not doing that. God's designed you that way. And they looked at Adam and Genesis on that. I found that we go around, one person reads the questions and everybody answers it. And we make sure everybody, unless they're having a really bad day, nobody hogs it. And we make it, and we say, what's the time? You got to do it that way. But everybody takes all 3 questions or 4 questions. That's one reason why you can't have 12 or 14 guys. You never get it done in a half an hour. 6 or 8 is max. Even at 8, you're pushing it. I found the guys extremely wanted to get real and honest. The first time we did it, the first group, because it is, why are you here? One guy, he's on our band, very social, outgoing. He says, I'm lonely. And I'm not sure, and he talks about his struggles with that. Another guy goes, I just had a baby and I'm scared. I don't have the foggiest idea on how to raise a son. And he says, I figure I better need to figure this out. We've just asked one simple question and they're being really honest right off the bat. I found guys who really want to do it, but it has to be a safe, appropriate environment. Okay? Now, here's a trick. And I don't care what your small group is, the guys have to use the I term. Because what will happen is, it's not about me, it's guys don't, instead of answering it about themselves, they'll answer it for guys. Well, guys don't like doing that type of thing. Sorry, you have to use what do you. I don't like doing it. Guys will always push it out because the issue of passivity. They'll deflect it to other people. So they'll say, well, as a group we, or they'll start using terminology that's not personal first sentence. Well, I'm not sure, I'm not an English guy, but it's not the I part. So I always say, guys, you can only answer for yourself, and if you're gonna use the plural of everybody, well, I'm gonna just ask you to restart it and make it I only. Again, it keeps it very intimate, personal, and guys respond really well to it. That's true for any small group. Guys will tend to always push it on to, it's not that I have an issue with porn, but everybody else does. Now, I know guys always struggle with porn. No, I don't care about what other guys do. Do you struggle with porn? Yes, okay, let's be honest. Great resource. Any questions about this one?
How many series are they doing? You said
There'll be six-week series.
How long is the video portion of that?
30 minutes.
And then you have 30 minutes of.
Small group time, yeah.
So
The idea is you can do it in slinks.
So you could actually have a big group, but then break up into small groups?
Oh yeah, that's how we do it. We have four small groups that meet. Or you can do it, like we have it on a Tuesday morning at 6:15. And I used to have a group on Sunday mornings before church, because the guys worked. And I said, okay, I'll do it here. And I had 5 guys that did it Sunday mornings. So it's easy to have it in your groups, spread it out. You can also get online and download an app. We had guys doing this at the Pentagon. They all said, okay, watch it when you can, and we'll meet for lunch and talk about it. That's available. So you can go online, like $3 to download it.
Have you heard success in that method?
Yeah.
Because
At the
usually
Pentagon, there's a
when we've
couple
done,
groups.
I guess it depends on discipline. Usually when I say, okay, we're gonna watch this together, and then we're gonna come discuss it, and then everyone shows up and they're like, hey, yeah, I meant to watch that, but tell me what happened. I'm really interested.
And then you shut it down. Sorry, guys. Let's see.
Is there training for the leaders?
Not really. Again, because that's a good question. This was a hard one. Somebody shares a problem, I want to say, I got 3 steps you can do to solve your problem. No, this is a sharing group. You can share your story, but you can't teach them. The training is the process of sharing. It's almost like ignorance. I hate to say that, but it's sort of like the Celebrate Recovery addiction process, where you learn from your stories. So there's no training required. You have a host that keeps the direction going. Now they do have a supports DVD here that has, it gives you some, it shows all the promo, it has a trailer so you can show a trailer at church. It has all the posters and banners. Also has it separates the teaching and the creative arts. So what I do, I recommend is look at some of the creative arts and use it in your Sunday morning service for your sermon and say, oh, by the way, that's part of our 33 video too, and we'll be starting that in 2 weeks. Because they have some great ones that work out. You can use it anytime. And they're 2 to 3 minutes long. They do have talk about, it's a very short explanation of, about developing a small group, a name for your group, why you should have a name for your group. They have like a 2 to 3 minute discussion, a leadership type board, where it has like 6 questions. But it's pretty shallow. Any other questions? $75 for the kit, 6 weeks, and then $15 for each book. Free shipping. That's my commercial. Okay. Now here's a philosophy that is a really important philosophy. Typical men's ministry, you start a great program. Again, this is No Man Left Behind. It's an excellent one for leadership development. I really would encourage a group to go through, a leadership team, and expand your team out. Don't just make it the same old group. You have a great activity. Okay, it could be the bowling, whatever it is. It could be the ISI conference. Let's say it's the ISI conference. You get everybody to come to it. And then you go back home. 3 months from now, have another great activity. We're going dropping skeet shooting. A lot of guys come out. And you go to church the next week. And this is the typical process most men's ministry has. And they want, at the end of it, there's no disciples. I'm like, what are we doing? We're trying to figure out where we're going. I'm watching my time, so I'm zipping a little bit. Okay, so you have the same starting point. You go the same place, but here's the big trick question. When you started, you said, what's next? Not this, but what comes after that? What comes after that comes after that. Your leadership team has to develop a year-long program. I have another thing to hand out to you. This you might find. This is from, whoops, here, let me have that stack. Okay, there. Make sure it's stick. Dick Taylor developed this. He was with Navigators. He's downstairs at their table. He's an older gentleman, been doing this for 25 plus years, leadership, church development, and he comes up with 12 major needs you must address to initiate a men's ministry in your church. Very practical. But you go through that, and then you start your point and say, okay, what are we going to do? And what's next? How about capture the momentum? Now, say you had 100, we had a group, 100 guys came. MCC had over 100 guys, but they had 100 guys. Well, typically, the attitude is, well, okay, unless they all come to the next thing, no, you're going to lose a bunch of them. You might lose 75% of them. You may lose 25%, say here. We're going to do 33 series for 6 weeks, only 6 weeks. Can you sacrifice 6 weeks? The old stuff, men's fraternity, was for 24 weeks. There's a lot of materials, 12 weeks, 18 weeks. I would say never go past 6 weeks. 8 weeks, maybe 9, 10 weeks. Okay? It's got to be good stuff. But don't go long stuff. Because a guy will commit to 6 weeks. So when you come, you've been excited. You've had your point where you put the stake in the ground. What's next? He wants to know what's next. We're going to do 33. Well, you're going to get a percentage of the guys that came out of your group that will do that. So you capture momentum. Then, after that 6 weeks, you're going to do something else. Now, eventually, the whole goal is each time you're getting to a smaller and smaller group. We understand that. Eventually, you're going to sustain it to the point where you're going to only maybe have a group of 3 or 4 guys. That's okay. It's the unofficial group that's going to sustain people. You know, if you talk to groups that have lasted for a long time, it's the accountability of 3 or 4 guys that has sustained them long-term, years. We always downplay it because, well, we had 100 and we're down to 25 or something. Yeah, 25. Isn't that wonderful? If you thought out, if you put 3 or 4 of these together, you have new disciples. You're going somewhere. You should be doing this concept probably at least 3 times a year, maybe 4 times a year. Our church probably does it twice a year. Okay, I think maybe we should do it 3 times, by the way. But we're sustaining it, and each time I've got a group that has gone through the cycle and sustained, and they all said was, look, we want to keep going. 5 of us. They said, and again, I let them develop a concept by asking a lot of questions, saying, well, what do you want to do? Well, we just watched one of the videos talk about long-term accountability, and I said, you all talked about that you really had a hard time with your daily devotions. Why don't we do a daily devotional type thing? And I said, let's make it easy. Let's read 1 chapter this week, 5 times. And then, I could do that. Okay. Now, ideally, they're going to do it at least 4, by the way. There's some scientific evidence saying if you think about God's word 4 times, it changes your life. Not 3. 5's okay. But it takes so much to get into it. That's a whole different, don't have time for that one. But so we started out we read the whole book of John, 1 chapter a week. And what happened, and this is what I realized, most guys don't know how to study God's word. So again, I'm not teaching them. This is what did you learn out of that chapter? What did you learn out of the chapter? We go around at Panera, for those Panera guys, and we sit and talk about it. And within a month, they're all learning how to look at God's word. Because when they say, Trey comes up with this great, he comes up and I'm like, wow, yeah, I see that. Trey said it. And then Scott says something else. And all of a sudden, they're learning to look at God's word through those type of eyes. Everybody's eyes a little different, and they learned that by just going around. I'm not training them. Now I've done the Bible training classes and all. This is more effective than anything I've ever trained. It really is a little frustrating. I've studied those books. They taught me, the 12 steps to good Bible reading. And it was actually just sharing with one another I found to be the most successful. Now we're up to reading 2 chapters, by the way. No, we read a chapter a day now. And we're in the book of Acts. So they said, we want to up it a little bit. Okay. But the whole point was to teach them to do it daily by themselves and to learn how to look at God's word and stuff. It worked. Sustaining. And we still are meeting. Now we take off, by the way, when our group does 33. So we have breaks all the time. But then we come back around and still meet. And they're in the same group. So
is a person in more than one group? Is a person in more than one small group?
No. Not necessarily. Most guys will only do 1 thing a week. if you're lucky. That's the reality. You know, if you're a young guy, at my age, I've got typical guys have 6 weeks of vacation a year. I'm making plenty. Yeah, typical guy, 55 years old, is already at the higher end of his salary that he's ever going to make. He's there. His kids are gone at 55 most of the time. I've got spare time. I got spare money. I've got spare everything. 25-year-old, my son at 30 years old, he's working 2 full-time jobs. Yeah, he's got a young baby. He doesn't have spare time. So if I plan my programs around me and my needs, why don't they all show up? Aren't they dedicated? Aren't they? I forget that a young man isn't where I am. Now, I've got the maturity, everything. I understand the values of life. A 30-year-old, most of the time, doesn't. You know, he's still figuring all that out. And, you know, whether I want to admit it or not, I keep telling my son, you know, wisdom, and he has to do it himself. So, you know, I'm telling you this so you don't have to go through the. No, when I was 30 years old, I knew better. You know, I knew better than everybody else. Well, it hasn't changed. And I say that to understand where everybody is, because they're going to be, some guys may be able to do 2 groups, okay? Most guys, though, if you can get them in 1 group, you're doing great, especially younger guys. And most younger guys, if you could say 6 weeks, and then I'll give you 6 weeks off, you're even better shape. That's why we only do it 2 to 3 times a year, because most guys won't give you that long. They're still trying to figure out life. And so either I meet them where they are, or I can whine about why they're not in my group.
So during that 6-week period, how many of those weeks do they have to commit to in order to be a part of the group?
Well, when we do the sustain, that's a one-time event, and then this would be maybe a 6-week to 10-week program. We want commitment. When we do 33 after the 2nd week, we don't advertise it anymore in our church. We'll advertise for 2 weeks, the first lesson, second lesson, but we've built relationships that at the 3rd week you can't just come in and step into it. We don't officially close it. We don't have, that's not our philosophy. You know, some groups do, they close them down because it's only for 6 weeks. But we just don't advertise it and push it anymore, so nobody comes. Because again, you're trying to develop, small group concept is developing intimacy and realness in life. And 6 weeks is not a very long time to do it. So yeah, they stay in 1 group. And they stay in 1 group. We don't let them push around. Now, a new guy come, we had 2, first week we started ours 3 weeks ago. I had 2 guys, Sunday was the first time in church. And then they came Tuesday to our group. I'm like, hey, this is pretty cool. I appreciate you coming. I said, but if you don't click with me in this group, you can try another group, okay? We're not hardcore on anything. I said, but at that point, you got to pick one of us. I say, you can't just keep popping around, because people do that just so they can avoid being real anonymous. And we push them, yeah. My son's the pastor, and I submit to him. Some days better than others. But he says, we are going to be a battleship. We are not going to be a cruise ship. Now, he's a little harsh sometimes. Him and Steve both are, okay? I sort of like that. So they do draw a line on some things. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. So again, this concept of thinking a long line, you got to think a year out and put these programs together. Stepping up. We're going to watch just a real clip because, man, I never. Again, you saw this clip, and it's a really good clip. This is a little different. And my system isn't working too good today. Anyway, maybe we're not going to watch this clip. A little blue
Every
light.
day, in every life, to demonstrate courage, because every day you're faced
The
with
commercial, you
decisions
saw parts of
and
him.
hard
Well,
things.
this is actually what it looks
Courage
like
is the ability
without the
to do
hyperness
hard
to it.
things in every circumstance.
That's why I wanted to show you
despite the cost.
really what the DVD series looks like. Because this is right up there with 33. This is excellent.
Secure. Requesting permission to proceed. Over.
I'm sorry about the clips. They were working fine at home.
I'm proceeding down the lower hallway. Over.
Between that, gets to see what it is.
Congratulations, David Scott, for showing extreme cowardice in the face of a little poo, actually. I salute you as the newest member of the Unmanly Hall of Fame.
So that's stepping up. They do an excellent job. What I like about them, there's like 12 different personalities they interview. Some top guys around the nation and ask them questions. So where like 33 has 3 people and they take turns. This is a little faster moving than Alice. Okay, he'll have literally a 45-second clip. He'll have a minute clip, and they move along, and you hear perspective. They just do a really good job.
What about the sharing time? Is that a part of this?
Yes. Yep. Same thing. Small group concept.
Hey, question.
Yes.
You recommended both of these, or
Yeah.
what would be a good start? 33 or stepping up? If you wanted to start up.
My personal, I'm 33.
I know you're sold on
Yes.
33, but.
And here's the reason, okay? Now again, they're different. Different isn't, okay? But 33, I think, steps a little bit better into, if I was trying to reach people that wouldn't come to a small group traditionally. I think 33 does a better job. I would follow it up with stepping up, though.
How about an existing group with stepping up? If they
Went
haven't
fine.
gone through 33?
You could do either or, and it wouldn't be an issue. I wouldn't. You know, one thing about 33, it's 6 weeks, and they only have 2. Well, they'll have 3 out here shortly. You can do 1, and then stepping up. You don't have to do them in a series. It's not like you do 6, you're off a couple weeks, and you do another 6. You might only do 1 men's fraternity this fall and 1 in the spring. And the other half of the fall, you might do the stepping up and have 4 weeks separation between them. I always put a couple weeks separation. So, because you try not, one of the things we do at churches is, hey, I only want you to come to this 6 weeks, but then I back it up with something else, and I'm sort of playing this game of, I really want you here for 12 weeks. I always say, no, 6 weeks, we're gonna be off for a couple weeks before I start something else. So I'm not trying to play a game with people and try to hook them in. Now, so I'm trying to hook them in, by the way. That's 4 weeks. That's when I say, hey guys, let's meet together at Panera and have coffee.
Is one or more from the friendly, like for our sons to do with their sons? They've got 3 sons, or is there an age that you shouldn't really?
Here's now. There are a lot of different opinions of this. I don't think fathers and son. You could do the same thing, but you shouldn't be in the same small group. It's hard for a son or a father, really, to be honest. My son is, well, no, dads have no problem saying my son's ticking me off. But a son really usually has a problem. So and even relatives, I say no. Yes, you can go to the same group or the big session, but when it comes to the small groups, separate and go to 2 different areas. That's just how can people be honest and real? You know, and I've had so many people say, oh, you don't know me and my son. You don't know your son. If you really think that's happening. Right. Other questions? Again, stepping up's excellent. I hate to even grade them, they're just different. Okay? And I tend, again, remember my outreach, I tend to be an outreach community oriented guy, so I tend to look at the big broader one. Where stepping up will be really acceptable in any church, no problem. 33, if you're going to reach out into the world a little bit, might be a little bit better. Yeah, it's that close though. I mean, hesitant to even say it, except I do.
And how big should the group size be? 6 to 8?
6 to 8, yeah. You can go down to 4. 6 to 8 is just a good number. Because you have a group and sometimes somebody's going to be out. So if you have only 4, then you're down to 3. 10. Yeah, that's good. It's getting there. It's getting big. Hard to. And the problem is you only have a half an hour and you got 4 questions. So you got to, in any of these type groups. So if everybody's sharing, you just can't do it. It's hard. and it's the person that's not sharing. Now, and that's, I've seen this again with my groups when we grow. When I'm 6 to 10, even with my couple groups, the quietest people share. I hit 12, it's like a switch. I can, in people, in my mind, I'm already thinking, she will not, and he, and they just won't share. I'll pick on them, I know them enough. Hey, so Charles, what do you think about that? Charles, why don't you wrap this up? And I do that, I pester him. And I have to tell him, Charles, you gotta keep talking, you can't shut down. 12 people, he's gonna shut down. I was up to 18. He really wasn't talking. And his wife was, I wouldn't do that to her. I wasn't that mean. Some people are that way, so that's why I say. Now, sometimes you have no choices, okay? We're a pretty fast growing church right now, so my groups, I had to go all the way up to 18 before I split them. We just didn't have leaders. That was a problem.
So how do you structure that 30 minutes?
Well, again, most of the Bible studies have the questions. Now, the important one, and they all have this to some degree, and I always encourage it, is don't let them leave without writing something down in their notes. Like in this, it's called the Fundamental Strategic Move. Each week you're going to come up with, I'm going to do something different this week. And I said, guys, write something down before you walk out of here. The next 30 seconds, 1 minute we're going to spend. I said, even if you're going to change it later, I don't care. But something's hitting you in your head. And something's challenged you. And I want you to write it down so later on you can come back and think about it. If you say, guys, go home, and as soon as you get home, write on it, they won't do it. Okay? The guys, okay, there will be some that will do it. They're the readers. They're the, okay. But in general, just say, I have them pens. I said, write down 1 minute. And this script something down. And I know it's this one. But now, when they do go home, and if they do, it'll trigger it. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's what it was. That was my moment. I was struggling with that. But you should do that with everything. And then at the end, you have 5, 6 great ideas to develop a program to change. Any other questions? Good questions. And I gotta keep through because there's a couple things I want to keep showing. Tony Evans. Well, the rate my computer's going today, I have to make my Mac work on this program.
He comes at the end of verse 17 and gives the last piece of the armor.
Now here's a whole different type of study. This is on Ephesians 6, the armor of God. See, this is where you can do stuff all over the place. It's not just one style. Yeah, I would not have, this is great stuff. Tony does an outstanding job. He was actually spoke at one of our ISIs 5 years ago. 6 years ago? It's been a while.
The last 3 of the armors use that verb. The first 3 uses the verb to be. That is, this is the state.
Now I gotta keep going. But that's the style. It's just videotaping him and his church, the sermon. He goes through, he does a great job. He breaks it down. Actually,
he says, I want you to pick up.
He talks about the sword of the Lord there. The only offensive weapon is the sword. Okay? And now, you notice we have a sword. That was my idea, the sword. Roman sword. Oh man, pastors are going to love this. They're going to use it in Ephesians 6. I was watching this. Tony said, now, I want you to know, that's the word for a short sword. What? I don't have a short sword. I have the, it's only 18 inches. It's for close-in fighting. And he goes into this whole description. I'm like, I didn't know that. Here I bought these swords months ago that really aren't accurate. So it just sort of, you're always learning. Now, I want to show you a couple books. Sticky Church. This is by far the best small group books I've ever done. Larry Osmond, he was just out in Raleigh this past week, so speaking at the Advanced 21 conference. He's a guy in California. Great, simple, he just thinks about it logically. I love his style of reading. It's just sort of like a guy coming over. Even when he speaks, it's just, so guys. You know, and he's not a high pressure guy. He's just like one of the guys, except he's brilliant. Yeah. At this conference, now this is funny, this is mostly a young man conference for church planners. It's Acts 29 conference. They're most of them 30. I've gone to a couple of them and I feel really out of place and I love it because they all think they're so unique. And I'm sitting there with my gray hair thinking I'm the only unique guy here. We all look alike in shorts and flip-flops. There's a couple great guys. Now this guy's in his 58, 57 years old. he was at this conference, and this is what they said about him. Guys, out of all the guys, and they had Piper there, they had some pretty big names. He says, this is the best guy you're going to hear from today. You need to, and they went on, J.D. Greer it was, went on about raving about, now, it's one of, Matt Chandler, who's a pretty big name, just got up and spoke. And he comes up and he says, now you're going to hear the best guy we have. To give you, this is with young men, this is young women too. It's just an outstanding book on smoking. It challenged me. I had to rethink of what I was doing. And because I was doing it wrong, by the way. And this was only 2 years ago. It was a little frustrating to be this old and still learning that much. So, if you want to learn, now, do I agree 100%? No, I'm always reading. That's why I love this real life discipleship book. The other book you guys got, Multiply. Okay, not everybody got that. That every church should have. Well, I ran out. I just finished this last week. Excellent discipleship book. It's very systematic. If you were looking for a book, a small group book, there's 5 lessons in them. I think 4 lessons. 5. Yeah, 5. Like the first lessons, there's 3 chapters to it, 3 parts to it. I take a guy or a small group and go through. Hey, we're going to read this book. And each week we're going to read first, what is a disciple? That's on page 15. Goes page 15 to page 27. Very short. Read that this week. I would maybe do 3 of them and then do something else. And then come back to it 2 months from now, 3 months. It would take me a year to go through this whole book. But it's a very systematic way to go through discipleship by one of the, now Francis Chan, cool part about this is he's got a video, you watch stuff, and each page he asks questions, and he says, now go to the video and watch me on that. Well, young people are very video oriented, and I love it too, by the way. And so you get to see him talking about what he's been writing about. So it's hitting all the senses. Very new book, just out. There's a whole movement on this, on discipleship. So I gave you that. Now, this is what you get if you buy the expensive copy. Those were the real cheap copies. I couldn't read those probably because the print's so small. Not a fan. Again, a couple of them because they're just such good resources.
Just finished it.
Did you like it?
Yeah, we
Did you do the studies or did you just read it?
No, we took 2 groups through it, 3 groups through it.
Now, the first time you looked at one of those tapes, what did you think about it?
Oh, we didn't use we just
Okay.
straight out of the book.
Okay. They I thought I had the book. Anyway, that's what it looks like. It's a video series as well as a book. It's a strange video. Anybody do the video? Boy.
Did a Sunday school class did it a couple of months back, and everybody loved it. It's a great story plot. It's a drama-driven video.
Yeah.
And it's very well done. It keeps your interest in the whole series. You want to come back and hear what the rest of the story
Yeah.
is.
But it's a little strange at first because I was expecting a Bible study. And then this guy's at a football game. And he gets a call about somebody who's dying or died or something. And it's like, what? And then he's driving, he goes, and he starts talking to you. This is strange. And then, but you're saying, it's like, okay, what's next?
What's the next? Yeah, so you want to see the whole series.
And the whole issue is, most of our in churches, we're a lot of fans, but we're not a lot of followers. And to be a follower means that it goes through that. Great study. Longer study though. It's a 14. It's a 14-weeker. Again, I tend to split things up. Yeah, did you split it up though?
Accidentally.
Okay.
Whether
you don't have to. My point is, a lot of people don't. I mean, just because I'm strange, you don't have to. But again, another great resource. This is Navigator stuff. This is a New Men one that just came out last year. Very good. If you're looking for a systematic one, again, this is a really good one too. Actually, I put this one over that one. Oh.
You just rebooted.
Yeah. That's sort of interesting.
We just a group of 4 of us just finished book 2 of Every Man a Warrior.
How'd you? Good, systematic, good homework required.
Yep. Homework, scripture memorization.
Yes.
Now there's 4 guys walking around that church. The pastor's one of them, but he can. Hey, you, tell me what blah 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 is. Right there.
Now that pyramid, funnel, wrong direction. You got to be down there somewhere, lower. You got to find the right guys to commit to it. But you find them, they need this, and it is really good one. The only thing of caution I'd say is the second one talks about marriage, So if you're doing single guys, I think they need to learn about marriage.
One of our 4, single guy.
And I think you should learn before you get married about it. We tend to think the other way around. But just warn you that you got to talk that out and let them know about it. Some people I know have gone from 1 to 3 for that reason. Did you? Go ahead.
No, I was like, we're out of time.
Okay. Yes, yeah, I am. That's. Okay. Here's just 2 things. One's a disciple. Here's a question that I give most small groups. What are you doing? We tend to do a shotgun blast effect with most men's ministry. I like that, do this, do that. And when it comes down to it, then we miss a whole lot. When I was in the military, I didn't get to vote on things because they said, no, you are going to do this because you need it. Yeah. No, not another forced march. Yeah, you need it. Okay? This is a great card. I got enough probably for you all. It's the 1 Timothy 3, Titus 1, the definition of elders and deacons. Okay, but that's the basic definition of every good Christian man. We think that's a minimum, by the way, not a maximum, a minimum. Well, do we as men's ministry think about, are we hitting all these issues? Most men's ministry, they have their favorites, and they ignore everything else. Okay, this whole point is just to remind you, systematically think long term. We're going to go through all these issues. Which ones do we always hit? Then focus in on the other ones. Now, I'm not saying you use wisdom, you got to know your men. But your men needs all of those issues here. And so I just encourage you to look again at your men's ministry, a big picture with a whole team with you. Also, I have one more thing to hand out. But if you want some advanced, you want to hand these out to everybody? Bethel College is the only seminary that I'm aware of. Ryan Doyle, the founder of ISI, actually worked with them to come up with a men's ministry a 1-year degree. Not a degree, but it's a certificate. Yeah. So if you ever want it, it's online. It's like 4 courses. If some of you say, hey, I'd like to take the next step, learn a little bit more, Bethel actually has that. So I'm trying to give you a whole lot of different stuff. So we've gone through a whole lot of different stuff. Here's a couple more. At Risk, Sleeping Giants. Excellent leadership one. He has a whole series from Rick Warren's church.
Kenny
Love. We've had him several times. Any last minute questions? Again, we want to just encourage you. We've thrown a lot of resources out. There's more on your paper. All of them we've said are solid, good information. It gives you a quick synopsis so you can go back home and research it out. One last thought. Surveys, because you guys are looking. I'm not a big survey guy because you're supposed to be the leaders. Lead. If you don't know what their needs are, you're not much of a shepherd then. You need to be a shepherd. Lead these guys. Now, surveys work if you're trying to teach something. Like we would help you with, if you ever wanted to do a survey with your men, call us up. We'll even give you the tools, the internet to work with you, set up the questions, work with you with questions. But we encourage questions like, so how many times a week do you read God's Word? What's your family devotion life like? How do you lead? Questions like that gives you a picture, but really you're letting them see where they are at. It's not for you. You already know. Most guys aren't reading their Bible. But it gives you equipment and tools. That's a good survey. A survey to say, hey, what do you want to do? That's not their job. Because they're going to pick all the fun stuff, like me. Okay? So just a little fun. Thanks for coming. Hope you.
Well, I trust this message has provided practical encouragement to you in your journey with Christ. Please visit noblewarriors.org to learn more about how Noble Warriors works to help churches reach and build men. God bless you, friend.